mitosis versus meiosis. So our goal here is to introduce meiosis by comparing it to mitosis, which is the process that you guys have already learned about. One really good way to do that is to use a T-chart. So I'm going to step down here below this, and I'm going to write mitosis, and I'm going to write meiosis. Now I'm going to use both numbers and color to differentiate between a few different things. And the first thing that we're going to look at is the type of reproductive process either these are or the type of reproductive process that these are associated with. Mitosis is asexual. We'll keep the same number scheme going on. Meiosis is sexual. Now, I'm going to pause right here for a second and talk about the differences here, because there's a big difference. Meiosis is not by itself sexual reproduction. And we're going to talk about what that means in a second. Mitosis is asexual reproduction. Mitosis is asexual, okay? When you have a cell that divides and now you have two cells, that process by itself is asexual reproduction. Meiosis, and I kind of underline this, me, think of me, as in you. That's how you and me and everyone on this meat were produced, as bisexual reproduction. Meiosis, however, is not sexual reproduction. So mitosis is asexual. Meiosis is only associated with sexual reproduction. Meiosis is the cell division process that produces sperm and egg. Sexual reproduction is the process that brings those sperm and egg together. So with humans, for example, it's copulation. With pine trees, for example, it's wind pollination. So sexual reproduction is different than the division process that produces the sperm and egg necessary for sexual reproduction. But it's associated with sexual reproduction for obvious reasons. Another thing that I want you to be aware of is that in asexual reproduction, mitosis being the type of asexual process that we're looking at today and comparing meiosis to, there is no variation, none whatsoever. Each cell and every cell is identical genetically. And so one of the things that we do need to recall from our cell unit is that you can have cell differentiation and specialization, but genetically, there's no variation. They have the same DNA, the same sequence, the same number of chromosomes, that sort of thing. Meiosis, that's a little bit different. You have lots. And when I say lots, and we're not going to get into this today, all the different possible combinations, but you have lots of variation. And so if you think about this, if you have siblings, brothers, sisters, you are not identical to them unless you're identical twins, and we'll establish the difference between identical and fraternal twins later in this unit. But if you're not identical twins, you have variation. You probably have similarities, whether it's characteristics or traits or appearance or mannerisms or whatever the case may be, likes, dislikes, but there is also lots of variation. Now, one of those reasons for variation, and this is not something you have to know what it is right now, I'm just front loading you by giving you the terminology, is independent assortment. And I'm going to show you what that is and how to recognize it and how much variation that actually produces when we start looking at the bulk of meiosis. And the other one, the animation that we watched, gave you an idea about this. So independent assortment and crossing over result in an extraordinary amount of variation. So those two things that happen at various points in this cell division process result in an extraordinary amount of variation. Another way that these two are different are the types of cells that they occur in. So with mitosis, that cell division process, the asexual process, occurs in somatic cells. And when we say somatic, that word soma means body. And so your body cells would be examples of skin cells, liver cells, lung cells, brain cells, muscle cells, nerve cells, neurons, that sort of thing. Okay. In meiosis, those occur in sex cells. And when we talk about sex cells, we can put another term to that because this is biology and we love different names that mean the same thing. Collectively, sex cells, both male and females, can be referred to or umbrellaed under the term gonads. And what we're talking about there is testes in the male and ovaries in the female. So if it's not a cell of the testes or ovaries, then it does not go through meiosis. It goes through mitosis. So those somatic cells literally refer to every other type of cell except sex cells. Okay? Now, we've established a lot of differences, and here, before we look at their overview, we're going to look at one way in which they are similar. Both of these processes have one round of DNA synthesis or DNA replication. So in mitosis, it kind of makes sense because you have one round of replication and then one round of division. But in meiosis, even though you have more than one round of division, you still only have one round of DNA replication or DNA synthesis. And again, that happens in interphase in both. You cannot have cell division, whether it's mitosis or meiosis, without first having DNA replication. So again, one round of DNA replication is how both of these cell division processes begin. The last thing we'll look at is the rounds of division. In mitosis, you have one round of division. And that round of division is the PMAT that we learned about. So in the M phase, we learned that you had the phases of mitosis, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then at the end of that, cytokinesis. But there is only one round of division. In meiosis, you have two rounds of division. And those can be divided up in what we call meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. And within those, you have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase 1. So I'm putting them all together, but we can also say prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, and telophase 1. And then in meiosis 2, you also have PMAT 2, or we can individually call them prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, and telophase 2. So this is just your introduction. We're going to do an overview of this. So I hope this helps.